Alone she lay, shaking with anxiety, on top of a simple beige chair. It reclined as far back as it could go, and she could feel blood gathering in her brain. She could hear her erratic heartbeat in her ears and her unsteady breaths as she waited until the hour was over. She heard the steady tick-tock of the clock in her ears and willed it to tick-tock faster. The face of the harsh laser beam cackled mockingly at her as it burned the torn snake-like blood vessels in her eye to cauterize them. She wondered, darkly, how many other patients lay in the same chair before her, suffering the same plight. All of a sudden she tasted something metallic in her mouth. Blood. It was not surprising, as she had been gnawing away at her tongue and lips the whole time to lessen the effect of the searing pain she was feeling higher up on her face. However, the worst pain was in her heart. She had given up so much her entire life, always putting others before herself, and as a result her health had been forsaken. Mama never made herself a priority, so naturally diabetes management took the back seat. The diabetes destroyed her body slowly without her even noticing for the past 14 years, until the day she woke up to a world tarnished with black splotches that obscured her vision. Those random splashes of black paint were a sign that her diabetes was getting out of hand. The floaters moved with every slight movement she made. They couldn't be controlled unless she decided to undergo numerous laser treatments. She strained her eyes to no avail. Even driving became a hazard, once nearly crashing into another vehicle. So close was she to hearing the grotesque clash of metal on metal, the horrid sound of cars crumpling against each other. So close was she to feeling the crushing weight of the engine sitting on her legs, effectively breaking her bones to pieces. So close was she to smelling the putrid smell of fire and gas and feeling the inferno searing her skin like a piece of meat. So close was she to hearing the wail of sirens as she lost consciousness from an accident. From that point, she made the conscious decision to clean up her life, and the first step was by opening up to lasers shooting beams of light in her eyes. She had always been a lover of food. She sought its comfort after long days and nights of work, fully dedicating her efforts to earning enough money for her family. Her plate was filled with piles of sugar and carbohydrates, the perfect equation for diabetes to take hold. The pancreas will try its best to control blood sugar by producing insulin, but over time, it will tire and stop making insulin. Insulin is the hormone that allows body cells to absorb sugar to use for energy. Without it, sugar remains in the bloodstream, and the cells become weak without an energy supply. There are many complications from diabetes, but the one relevant to Mama had to do with her vision. Blood becomes viscous from the unrelenting sludge of sugar, a danger for the delicate capillaries in the eye. They will tear and blood seeps into the eyes, which may cause permanent blindness if diabetes progresses to more advanced stages without proper treatment. And regrettably, Mama suffered terribly from diabetes. The second step to reversing her life was through a vitrectomy. During this stage, the torn blood vessels were cauterized by the lasers, so now the remaining blood in the vitreous part of the eye needed to be removed. Mama was shuttled back and forth from appointments and surgeries for a total of 3 times just for the vitrectomies. Once these operations were completed, another problem was unearthed. It was like a can of worms had been opened. She had also been suffering from retinal detachment. The scarring of her torn blood vessels had ripped the retina away from its normal position, leaving her partially blind in her left eye. The retina is the light processing part of the eye that sends signals to the brain in order to create images. Without the retina in place, Mama had difficulty seeing the things she loved. She yearned to see the mountain peaks that were ever so familiar during her frequent road trips to San Francisco where her heart was. She yearned to see the tall golden grasses of the California valleys swaying peacefully in a refreshing breeze. But most of all, she longed to see the faces of her loved ones clearly. A miniature Tarzan could probably swing from vine to vine in her eye, yodeling away, seeing as the tendrils of menace had grown so wildly. The only solution the ophthalmologist could come up with was placing a gas bubble inside of her eye to gently nudge the retina back to its home. 3 more times, Mama returned home with a stark white gauze taped over her left eye. She looked like a sad excuse for a pirate with a sloppy eye patch. Her face was haggard, and her treasure, her vision, had been looted from her ship. My heart ached for her. I knew how much she forced herself to get up each day, constantly reminded of how much dimmer her world was now, in ways that ran deeper than blindness. On the day of her final checkup, the ophthalmologist iterated some of the worst words she had ever heard. The damage is irreparable. Your left eye is permanently blind. Mama had a macular tear, which was perhaps nicked during one of her multitudinous hours under the scalpel. An avalanche of rage enveloped her in a swathe of red, it being her most prominent emotion. Something within had snapped and broken half, releasing the monster of feeling she had kept bottled up for the longest time. She felt cheated of her life. She, who always put others before herself, had one of the most valuable things in life stripped away from her. Whatever goodness she had contributed to the world had been worthless, since life had still chosen to crush her underfoot. Big fat tears rolled down her round cheeks. She mourned over how her life would never return to how it was before. Immense fear overtook her as she imagined how her dreams would be compromised by her new disability. She lost a small bit of independence as she couldn't drive anymore. She was now unable to mend the clothes of her daughter, a simple task that meant so much to her. It was a scary thought thinking she had one last chance in her right eye, but what if the same thing happened to it? But Mamma had no one to blame but herself. Despite constantly being reminded to take care of her health, she neglected to do so. Her diabetes spiraled out of control from her lack of attention, so she could only move on and learn from the experience.
I don't believe in blaming others. If I live in anger or hatred and keep on blaming others, nothing is going to happen to me. I will just hurt myself, and in the end, I will end in hurting others too. It is not a good way to live.
Mamma stepped on the doorstep and inhaled a large dose of air.
I still have one eye. I can still use it.
She was determined not to let the loss of one of her eyes deter her from seeing the beautiful things in life. Today she stands up with her shoulders back, adapting to her condition with a smile on her face, constantly finding new ways to make the lives of others better. She never stopped caring. Her heart never hardened from the damage she survived. She taught me many things throughout the course of my life and will still continue to teach me even when she is no longer around. But the one thing I realized from her existence is that life is never your enemy, but your teacher. The values that shape one's character all stem from life's teachings. It only serves to make you stronger as a human being in order to touch the lives of others, just like Mama did. Though she was knocked over by the winds of change, she managed to stand up again to adapt. She picked up the broken pieces and taped them back together anew. Mama continued to see life through her remaining eye and was met with more colors than she ever imagined. And for that she is my hero, because she never stopped believing in the goodness that is stowed away in the darkness of times. It shines subtly. One just has to open their heart up to change in order to meet its radiance.